A young woman got a job as a maid in a millionaire's house, but when the owner saw her family photo, his heart stopped. Jenny wiped her damp hands on her apron, noting every tiny drop of oil that had left shiny marks on her tired uniform. The pizzeria on the outskirts of a small town in California, where she had worked for the past 3 years, was always bustling with life. Locals enjoyed coming by in the evenings to savor aromatic pizza and cold drinks, and Jenny greeted them each time with a tired but friendly smile. Pepperoni and 2 large colas to the 5th table. She repeated the order to the cooks and went back out into the dining area. The air conditioner, as usual, barely managed to cope with the heat, and the air was thick with the scent of dough, cheese, and tomato sauce, mingling with the stifling summer evening. Jenny was called by her friend and colleague, cashier Clara, who raised her eyebrows in a questioning gesture. "Did you take another extra shift?" Her voice was full of sympathy and confusion. "Yes," Jenny smiled, hiding her exhaustion. "I really want to take a vacation to France, to the French Riviera. So, I have to work double shifts." "And when is your trip planned?" "Very soon, just a couple of weeks left until vacation," Jenny sighed, as if trying to breathe her dream into reality. Her thoughts drifted to the shores of the Mediterranean, to the warm waves caressing the golden beaches of Nice and Cannes. She imagined strolling along the promenade, sipping a cold cocktail, and listening to the sound of the surf. The dream of such a trip didn't come from nowhere. Jenny had read many books about France, its culture and art, and films about the Riviera had turned her view of this country into a true passion. Jenny slowly turned the pages of the guidebook to the French Riviera that lay on her lap. In every word and every image, she sought inspiration, planning her perfect itinerary. Suddenly, she stopped at the section dedicated to the small, cozy cafes in the old port of Nice, where the most delicious ice cream in the city was served. Her heart raced at the thought of the first sip of coffee with a view of the yachts rocking on the waves. Every evening after work, Jenny set aside part of her modest earnings into a travel savings jar. With each passing day, the jar grew heavier, just as her dream became closer. Finally, 2 weeks before her departure, she decided to check if she had saved enough for her trip. Her heart skipped a beat when she opened the jar. There was even more money than she had anticipated. With this money, Jenny could afford not only accommodation and meals, but also a few excursions in the surrounding areas. She decided to book a tour of the vineyards in Provence and visit the famous beaches of Cannes she had read so much about. Her excitement grew with each passing day as the departure date approached. A week before her vacation, Jenny started packing her suitcase. She carefully selected outfits suitable for the hot weather of the French Riviera and didn't forget to include comfortable shoes for long walks through the ancient streets of Nice. Additionally, she packed a small first aid kit, sunscreen, and a hat, essential items for any traveler. Last to go into the suitcase were books and guidebooks. She brought not only a guide to France but also novels by French authors to read while sitting in cafes overlooking the sea. Jenny also packed a journal, in which she planned to record all her adventures so that she could relive those moments repeatedly when she returned home. Finally, the departure day arrived. Jenny felt an exciting mix of joy and anxiety as her taxi pulled up to her house in the early morning hours. Her entire future seemed filled with adventure and new discoveries. She could hardly believe that her dream was coming true. On the way to the airport, she gazed out the taxi window at the waking city, thinking about the days ahead. The streets outside passed by, already familiar and beloved, and Jenny realized that returning here would be different. She would come back with new experiences and memories that would stay with her for a lifetime. She exhaled, trying to dispel her nervousness, and smiled at her reflection in the window. Ahead was France, and she was ready to embrace it. As Jenny stepped out of the Nice airport terminal, the first thing she was greeted by was the warm Mediterranean air. It was infused with the scent of the sea and freshness, which made her smile immediately. Despite the fatigue from the long flight, she felt unusually alive and full of energy. This was a new beginning, a moment she had been waiting for so long. Jenny took a taxi to her hotel. On the way, she couldn't take her eyes off the car windows, trying to catch every detail of the city. Nice welcomed her with its sprawling palm trees, elegant Belle Epoque buildings, and wide boulevards that sparkled under the bright morning sun. The hotel turned out to be charming and cozy, with a view of a quiet street not far from the beach. After she left her things and freshened up a bit, Jenny decided not to waste any time and immediately set out to explore the city. She headed toward the famous Promenade d'Anglais, where she planned to walk along the sea to enjoy the waves and the gentle sun. Walking along the promenade was almost meditative. The sea roared nearby, and each wave crashing on the shore brought with it a sense of peace and inner calm. Jenny stopped at one of the cafes, where she ordered a cup of fragrant coffee and a croissant. Sitting across from the endless sea, she allowed herself a moment to forget everything. After her coffee, she continued her stroll and soon found herself at one of the local beaches. The sand was warm. Jenny took off her shoes and carefully stepped onto the small pebbles, feeling each one massage her feet. She walked along the shore, savoring every step and the warmth of the sun on her skin. The waves caressed her legs, and the melodic sound of the surf soothed her soul. She was already beginning to feel like a part of this enchanting place when her attention was drawn to a male voice coming from behind her. "Excuse me, is this your handkerchief?" asked the stranger with a warm smile, holding out a light silk handkerchief. Jenny turned around and saw a tall man with strong features and deep blue eyes that seemed almost as infinite as the sea before her. "Oh, yes, that's mine, thank you," she said, accepting the handkerchief. "I didn't even notice I'd lost it." "My name is Albert," he introduced himself, shaking her hand once more. Jenny felt his firm and confident handshake convey warmth. "I'm Jenny," she replied, trying to hide the excitement that suddenly enveloped her. Albert smiled and looked at the sea, then back at Jenny. His gaze was penetrating but at the same time incredibly gentle. "Did you come here alone?" he asked casually, though there was a genuine curiosity in his voice. "Yes, I'm here on vacation," Jenny answered, feeling her cheeks blush slightly. "Then let me show you some places that are usually off the beaten path." "It could be the start of your adventure here," Albert suggested, his voice sounding so convincing that Jenny immediately felt a surge of adrenaline. Unable to refuse such an offer, she nodded. They began to stroll slowly along the beach, diving into conversations about Nice, the sea, and life. Albert told her about local traditions and shared stories about famous movie stars who visited the city during the film festival. As the sun began to set, they arrived at one of the secluded seaside cafes. Albert invited Jenny to join him for dinner, and she agreed. That evening, they talked about everything under the sun, and Jenny felt an indescribable connection forming between them. She told him about her life in America, her dreams and plans, and he listened intently, never taking his eyes off her. Dinner continued with live music, and when the orchestra began to play a soft melody, Albert asked Jenny to dance. On the dance floor, under the stars and moonlight, Jenny felt her heart beat in time with the music. Albert led her so skillfully and tenderly that she forgot everything else. The evening ended with a promise to meet again. As Albert escorted her back to her hotel, Jenny felt that this day would forever remain in her memory. A new feeling, filled with the anticipation of something magical, was beginning to blossom in her heart. She didn't know what awaited her next, but she was certain that this vacation would change her life. Jenny woke up to the warm rays of the morning sun streaming into her room through the half-open curtains. Her heart was filled with a pleasant excitement at the thought of meeting Albert. Since that unforgettable night when they had first danced together under the stars, each day had been filled with new experiences and romantic adventures. Albert proved to be the perfect guide and companion. He knew Nice like the back of his hand, and every date they had was something special. He showed her places that were hidden from ordinary tourists, the winding streets of the old town, the behind-the-scenes of the market where vendors shared with them the freshest and most aromatic spices. One morning, Albert invited Jenny onto his yacht. They set sail along the coast, and the water shimmered under the bright sun like a vast mirror. Jenny would never forget how they glided past magnificent villas and lush gardens that descended right to the shore. Albert recounted stories of celebrities who had once stayed there, while the sea breeze gently enveloped them. In the evenings, they often dined at the best restaurants in Nice.